Step inside a 1960s American home, and you'll find a world filled with colors, jingles, and brands that defined everyday life. From the laundry room to the kitchen table, families trusted products that felt almost like family members themselves. These weren't just brands. They were symbols of pride, convenience, and the booming optimism of post-war America. But as the decades passed, many of these household names quietly faded away, replaced by sleeker logos, new technology, and changing tastes. Today, most people under 40 have never even heard of them. Yet, hidden in old magazines, vintage TV commercials, and family photo albums, these brands still hold a charm that modern products can't quite recreate. In this video, we're traveling back in time to rediscover 25 popular household brands from the 1960s that completely disappeared, once loved classics that shaped daily life, only to slip into history's forgotten shelves. That it's easy to assume that brands disappear simply because they weren't good anymore. But the truth is far more complex and surprisingly emotional. In the 1960s, the average American household was experiencing a cultural shift. Families were moving from small towns to suburbs. Women were entering the workforce. Advertising was transforming, and technology was advancing at a speed no one had seen before. As lifestyles changed, so did the products people relied on. Many beloved brands were built for a world that no longer existed. A world where moms stayed home, neighborhood stores knew every customer by name, and people repaired appliances instead of replacing them. When manufacturing became global, cheaper mass-produced alternatives flooded the shelves. Small and mid-sized brands, once thriving, simply couldn't compete with the aggressive pricing and nationwide distribution of emerging giants. Television also played a massive role in shaping consumer loyalty. Brands with catchy jingles and colorful packaging thrived in an era where everyone watched the same 3 channels. But by the late 70s and 80s, larger corporations dominated the airwaves, buying up ad slots that smaller companies couldn't afford. As the marketing landscape expanded, niche brands were forced into the shadows. Legal changes, safety regulations, and ingredient restrictions also contributed to the disappearance of many products, especially cleaning supplies, beauty items, and processed foods. Some formulas were outdated, unsafe, or too expensive to modernize. Instead of reinventing themselves, many companies simply shut down or were absorbed by bigger brands. And then there's nostalgia, the feeling that makes us remember old products as warmer, friendlier, and somehow more authentic. They remind us of grandparents' homes, magazine ads with smiling families, and a time when buying a household product felt like a long-term commitment. So when a brand disappears, it's rarely because it failed. It's usually because the world moved on. And in that shift, entire pieces of everyday culture quietly slipped away, leaving behind memories that only survive in dusty cabinets, old commercials, and the stories passed down through families. The 1960s were more than just a colorful decade of rock and roll, space dreams, and cultural revolutions. It was also the golden age of American household brands. This was the era when kitchens, living rooms, and laundry rooms were filled with products that promised a brighter, cleaner, easier future. Families trusted these brands not just because they worked, but because they felt like part of the household itself. Imagine opening a 1960s kitchen cabinet. You'd find canned goods with bold typography, cleaning sprays with futuristic promises, and appliances proudly made in the USA. Companies were in fierce competition, not only to produce better products, but to create stronger emotional connections. Ads didn't just say buy this. They said, this will make your life better, happier, more modern. And people believed it, because for the first time in history, mass-produced quality goods were affordable to the average family. The 1960s were built on optimism. Post-war America was booming, suburbs were expanding, and young families were setting up their first homes. Every new gadget, detergent, or canned product symbolized progress. Housewives, who were the primary decision-makers for household purchases, were targeted with friendly mascots, persuasive jingles, and magazine spreads that felt like personal letters. This kind of emotional marketing created deep trust, and many of these brands felt nearly impossible to replace. But what really made this decade special was the diversity of competition. Before megacorporations took over, dozens, sometimes hundreds, of mid-sized companies thrived in every category. Whether it was cereal, soap, soda, or kitchen appliances, each brand had its own personality, regional influence, and loyal following. A detergent popular in the Midwest might be unknown in the South, while a canned soup adored in the East might never reach the West Coast shelves. This regional charm is exactly why so many of these brands feel nostalgic today. They were woven into the local identity of American life. Packaging also played a major role. Bold fonts, hand-drawn logos, and warm color palettes made products look friendly and inviting. Unlike the sleek minimalism of today, 1960s packaging celebrated personality. Even simple items like baking powder, dish soap, or instant pudding carried a sense of joy, a reflection of a time when a trip to the grocery store felt exciting, not overwhelming. Another reason the 1960s became a golden era was the emergence of television as a national influence. For the first time, families across the country were watching the same commercials at the same time. A single ad campaign could turn a regional favorite into a national sensation overnight. Kids begged for cereal because they saw it on Saturday morning cartoons. Moms trusted cleaning brands because commercials showed sparkling kitchens that felt so real. Ads didn't just sell products. They sold dreams of the ideal American home. But perhaps the most powerful reason these brands thrived is that they represented stability. In a decade filled with social change, household products were comforting constants. Whether someone lived in a small town or a big city, these brands provided a sense of familiarity and reliability. Even if life was uncertain, your favorite detergent, canned soup, or family soda recipe stayed the same, until one day, many of them quietly disappeared. The golden age didn't last forever, but its memory remained strong because it shaped how Americans consumed, cleaned, cooked, and lived. The brands of the 1960s weren't just products, they were cultural icons. And even though many of them have faded away, their legacy still lingers in vintage ads, family stories, and the warm nostalgia of a time when everyday items carried a little extra magic. The disappearance of so many beloved 1960s household brands didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, quiet fade, a combination of economic shifts, cultural changes, and corporate takeovers that reshaped the American marketplace. What once felt iconic and irreplaceable gradually slipped off shelves, leaving behind only memories, old ads, and the occasional dusty product found in an antique store. One of the biggest reasons was corporate consolidation. In the 1960s, the market was filled with small and mid-sized companies, each with its own loyal following. But as giant corporations expanded in the 1970s and 1980s, they began buying out or absorbing competing brands. Sometimes they kept the product but changed the recipe. Other times they discontinued it completely to remove competition. Many beloved regional brands disappeared simply because a bigger company decided they didn't fit the new corporate vision. Then came the rise of supermarkets and national distribution chains. In the 1960s, local grocery stores carried a wide variety of products from nearby manufacturers. But as chains like Walmart, Kroger, and Safeway grew, they demanded standardized, mass-produced goods. Niche brands, even popular ones, struggled to scale to national production. Without nationwide reach, many couldn't survive. Another major shift was changing consumer tastes. By the late 1970s and 1980s, Americans became more health-conscious. Products loaded with sugar, artificial dyes, or heavy preservatives suddenly seemed outdated. Brands that built their identity around convenience first struggled when customers began reading nutrition labels. Items once proudly advertised as instant, canned, or powdered were now seen as unhealthy or old-fashioned. Technology also played a surprising role. The rise of microwaves, dishwashers, and frozen meals reduced the need for many traditional pantry staples. Products like powdered mixes, canned goods, or manual cleaning supplies lost popularity as new forms of convenience took over. A brand that dominated in the 1960s could become irrelevant nearly overnight. The shift in advertising further accelerated the decline. In the 1960s, even a small brand could become popular through clever jingles or magazine spreads. But by the 1990s, TV advertising became so expensive that only multinational corporations could afford it. Without the budget to keep up, smaller brands faded from public memory. And finally, there's simple nostalgic truth: the world changed. Families changed. The rhythm of daily life changed. The warm, homey optimism of the 1960s was replaced by a faster, more digital, more global lifestyle. Some products lost relevance. Others lost recognition. And some were simply forgotten as new generations grew up with different brands entirely. But even though the shelves changed, the memories remained. People still recall the smell of a 1960s cleaning spray, the taste of a cereal no longer made, or the logo of a long-lost company that once felt like part of the family home. These vanished brands didn't just disappear. They became time capsules of an era when life felt simpler, slower, and full of small joys that today's world can't quite replicate. Point 1. AP Coffee, once a grocery staple. AP's own coffee blend filled 1960s homes with its rich, roasted aroma. Families trusted it as an everyday morning ritual. But when the AP supermarket chain collapsed under pressure from modern retail giants, its signature coffee vanished with it. Today, only vintage tins survive, silent reminders of breakfast tables where conversations started over a steaming cup that simply doesn't exist anymore. 2. Lux Laundry Soap. Lux began as a gentle laundry soap advertised as safe for delicate fabrics. Housewives swore by it for washing wool sweaters and baby clothes. But as liquid detergents and all-in-one formulas took over in the 1970s, Lux couldn't compete in an increasingly modernized market. Its quiet disappearance marked the end of an era when Laundry Day carried the soft, floral scent of a brand that once ruled American washrooms. 3. Fizzy's drink tablets. Kids in the 1960s loved dropping Fizzy's tablets into water to create instant soda. It felt magical, a science experiment you could drink. But growing concerns over artificial sweeteners and competition from bottled sodas pushed Fizzy's off the market. Though briefly revived years later, it could never recapture the childhood wonder that made it a backyard summer icon. 4. Does detergent does it was once the cleaning battle cry of American homemakers. Famous for including free gifts inside each box, Does built a loyal following. But as detergent giants tightened market control, Does struggled to keep up with modern formulas. The freebie stopped. Consumers moved on. And the brand faded, leaving behind only the memories of surprises hidden inside a laundry soap box. 5. Nabisco's Swiss cheese crackers. These crackers delivered a sharp, tangy flavor that made them a party favorite. They were the kind of snack moms kept for unexpected guests. But rising ingredient costs and changing snacking habits led Nabisco to discontinue them. Today, fans still hunt for a modern equivalent, but none fully match the nostalgic bite of this lost classic. 6. Ipana toothpaste. With its famous Bucky Beaver mascot, Ipana was a household name. Children loved the animated commercials, and parents trusted the formula. But as Colgate and Crest dominated store shelves, Ipana was squeezed out. By the 1980s, it was gone from the U.S., remembered only through vintage ads that once made brushing teeth fun. 7. Banquet boil-in-bag meals. Families in the 1960s considered boil-in-bag dinners a futuristic miracle, quick, tidy, and efficient. But when microwaves became standard, the concept became outdated overnight. These meals vanished, taking with them the oddly comforting routine of dropping plastic pouches into boiling water while dinner cooked itself. 8. Brownie chocolate drink. Before chocolate milk cartons filled school cafeterias, Brownie was the sweet, bottled chocolate drink kids raced to buy. Its creamy taste made it beloved across several regions. But corporate consolidation wiped out many local dairies, including Brownie. For thousands, that last sip years ago was truly their last. 9. Vanished Petrolets. These tiny fuel tablets were a novelty, a portable way to heat small pots and camping gear. They were inexpensive and popular with scouts and DIY hobbyists. As safer and more efficient fuels emerged, Petrolets quickly became obsolete. Today, they're a curiosity found only in collector circles. 10. Royal Crown Gelatin Desserts. Once a competitor to Jell-O, RC Gelatin offered vibrant flavors and fun family recipes. But marketing budgets mattered more than taste, and Jell-O simply out-advertised everyone else. RC gelatin slowly vanished, leaving behind faded cookbooks filled with recipes no one can make the same way again. 11. Beeman's chewing gum sold as a stomach-soothing gum. Beeman's was popular with aviators and travelers. The mild, refreshing flavor made it a quiet favorite. But declining sales and limited modern appeal caused it to disappear, resurfacing only occasionally as a novelty revival. Still, no comeback matches the charm it once had. 12. Tangy lipstick. Teen girls in the 1960s adored Tangy, a lipstick that changed color depending on your skin tone. It felt like magic makeup. But with cosmetic science exploding in the 1970s, Tangy got overshadowed by trendier brands. Its mystique faded, but many women still remember it as their first lipstick. 13. Handy Andy Cleaner. Known for its powerful scent and strong cleaning action, Handy Andy ruled under sink cabinets across America. But competition from multi-surface sprays and modern chemicals pushed it out. The brand couldn't evolve fast enough and slowly disappeared as cleaning became more convenience-focused. 14. Roman meal bread. A hearty, whole-grain loaf. Before whole grains were cool, Roman meal was the healthier bread of its time. But as megabrands dominated bakery aisles, Roman meal lost shelf space. Today it exists only in limited markets, no longer the national favorite it once was. 15. Fostoria glassware. Middle-class families proudly displayed Fostoria crystal in cabinets and dining rooms. But when cheaper imported glass flooded the market, Fostoria couldn't compete. The factory shut down, ending a shining chapter of American tableware craftsmanship. 16. Bosco chocolate syrup. Bosco wasn't just syrup, it was a childhood memory. Kids loved its rich, malty taste. But as Hershey's and Nestle tightened control of stores, Bosco lost visibility and faded away. For some, no modern syrup tastes quite as comforting. 17. Sweetheart soap. A floral-scented bath bar marketed as gentle and romantic, Sweetheart soap was popular among teenage girls. But bath routines modernized, body washes took over, and the brand quietly disappeared. Its pastel packaging remains a nostalgic symbol of simpler grooming days. 18. Hi-C Ecto Cooler. A neon green citrus drink tied to pop culture, Ecto Cooler became a craze after the Ghostbusters era. But when licensing ended, the flavor vanished. Fans still beg for its return, proving that even sugary drinks can become cultural icons. 19. Hathaway shirts. Marketed with the famous man with an eye patch ads, Hathaway symbolized refined men's fashion. But changing styles and cheaper imports led to its decline. As department stores shifted inventory strategies, the once prestigious brand disappeared from American closets. 20. Chef's Blend Coffee. This gourmet-style coffee was ahead of its time. But before Starbucks rewrote coffee culture, premium brews struggled to survive. Chef's Blend disappeared due to low demand, a victim of being too early for its own good. 21. Sunshine Hydrox cookies. Often overshadowed by Oreos, Hydrox actually came first. But Oreo's aggressive marketing eventually pushed it off shelves. For decades, Hydrox fans insisted it tasted better, but nostalgia couldn't keep it alive in a world dominated by one cookie giant. 22. Log Cabin fruit syrups. Before maple syrup ruled breakfast, Log Cabin offered fruity pancake syrups in flavors like apple and raspberry. But changing breakfast habits and production costs forced the company to discontinue them. Their disappearance ended a creative chapter of American breakfast history. 23. Pond's Cold Cream, original formula. Once the universal makeup remover on women's vanities, Pond's original cold cream was iconic. But modern cleansers and skincare brands overshadowed it. Though Pond's still exists, the classic formula that defined 1960s beauty routines has vanished. 24. Pacola Soda, U.S. market. Imported from South Asia, Pacola gained a cult following in select American communities during the 1960s. But distribution issues and limited awareness prevented it from expanding. It quietly disappeared, now remembered mainly by nostalgic collectors of vintage sodas. 25. STA Puff fabric softener. Before dryer sheets existed, SDA Puff's liquid softener made laundry feel cozy and fresh. But shifting laundry technology reduced its demand. Eventually, the brand faded, marking the end of an era when fabric softener felt like a small household luxury. The disappearance of these once-beloved 1960s household brands wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling shaped by changing lifestyles, new technologies, and the rise of massive corporations. In many ways, the fall of these brands mirrors the cultural shift of America itself. Back in the 60s, families were loyal to specific brands. A mother used the same detergent her mother did. A father trusted the same tools he grew up watching his own dad use. When a brand earned a place in the home, it stayed for generations. But by the late 70s and early 80s, the ground began to shake beneath these once stable companies. One major reason was corporate consolidation. Small and mid-sized brands, the ones that once dominated kitchen shelves and laundry rooms, were slowly swallowed by bigger companies. Many were bought out and then quietly discontinued, replaced by newer, more aggressively marketed products. A once-loved label could vanish overnight simply because its parent company wanted to streamline. Another cause was changing consumer habits. The 1960s home was centered around convenience, but convenience looked different then. Families cooked at home, ironed clothes weekly, polished furniture every Sunday, and bought specialized products for every little job. By the 1980s, life sped up. Dual-income households became common, and people didn't have time for elaborate cleaning rituals or niche products. Brands built for a slower lifestyle simply couldn't keep up. Technological innovation also played a huge role. New materials, new food packaging, safer chemicals, and digital appliances made older brands feel outdated. Why buy an old wood polish when a new all-in-one spray promised the same results with half the effort? Why stick to a 1960s kitchen staple when microwaves and instant mixes took over mealtimes? Some brands disappeared due to supply challenges or poor adaptation. As manufacturing techniques evolved, many companies were unable or unwilling to modernize. Others struggled to appeal to the new TV generation, failing to create commercials that resonated with younger families. And then there's nostalgia, a powerful force that hits us when it's already too late. We only realize how iconic these brands were when they're gone. The jingles, the packaging, the logos that once filled our cupboards. These forgotten 1960s household brands are more than just products. They're pieces of everyday American life, lost in time, but still alive in memory. When we talk about forgotten household brands from the 1960s, we're not just talking about products. We're talking about the heart of American family life. These brands helped shape routines, traditions, and the rhythm of everyday living. Their disappearance didn't just change what people bought, it changed how people lived. In the 1960s, a brand wasn't simply a label on a bottle or a box. It was a trusted companion in the home. A familiar detergent meant the scent of fresh laundry drifting through hallways every Monday morning. A beloved cereal brand meant kids gathered around the kitchen table before school. A specific cleaner meant Saturday chores, radio playing in the background, and the feeling of everything finally being in order. When these brands faded away, a piece of that world faded with them. Many of these companies represented the simplicity and optimism of mid-century America. Their ads featured cheerful housewives, smiling children, and promises of a better, easier life. They shaped what families aspired to and what they believed a happy home should look like. Their jingles played during primetime TV, embedding themselves into cultural memory. Even today, older generations can hum tunes from brands that vanished decades ago. The disappearance of these products also reflects a broader shift in American identity. As small, homegrown companies were replaced by global giants, the country moved from local charm to mass uniformity. Where shelves once held dozens of unique regional brands, today they're dominated by just a few multinational names. Something personal was lost, that sense of connection to a company that felt like a neighbor, not a corporation. At the same time, these forgotten brands tell the story of a changing American economy. The rise of supermarkets, the push for convenience foods, the growth of fast-paced lifestyles, all of this gradually made older brands obsolete. What once felt essential slowly became old-fashioned. But despite disappearing from shelves, many of these brands live on in memory. People still talk about the smell of a certain soap, the taste of a cereal that no modern brand has ever truly replicated, the logo they loved as a child. They are reminders of a time when life felt slower, warmer, and more family-centered. A nostalgic snapshot of the American home in its golden era. The disappearance of so many beloved 1960s household brands wasn't sudden. It was a slow, quiet fade shaped by powerful changes in American life. Each vanished brand carries a story of shifting tastes, booming industries, and the unstoppable march of modernization. In the early 1960s, families were loyal to the products they grew up with. But the decades that followed brought fierce competition. Giant corporations began buying smaller companies, merging labels, and phasing out anything that didn't fit their evolving business model. A soap brand might vanish not because people stopped loving it, but because a bigger company decided it wasn't profitable enough to keep alive. Technology played its role too. New machines, production methods, and chemical formulas changed what people expected from everyday products. Suddenly, older brands seemed outdated, even if they worked perfectly well. A cleaner that once felt revolutionary was overshadowed by a spray bottle promising twice the power. A humble detergent was replaced by concentrated powders and later by colorful plastic pods. Consumer habits transformed as well. The rise of supermarkets changed shopping forever. Instead of local, regional brands, families were introduced to shiny national labels stacked floor to ceiling. Advertising exploded. TV commercials dominated. And the brands with the biggest marketing budgets won, even if their products weren't better. Smaller 1960s brands simply couldn't keep up. Then came globalization. Cheaper imports, mass production, and new supply chains reshaped store shelves. Companies rebranded, restructured, or shut down entirely. Many iconic 1960s names were absorbed into bigger corporations and quietly discontinued, their identities erased in the process. Cultural changes mattered too. The cheerful, homemaker-focused branding of the 1960s no longer matched the evolving values of American households. As women entered the workforce and lifestyle sped up, products needed to be faster, stronger, more convenient. The nostalgic charm of older brands didn't stand a chance in a market obsessed with new and improved. And yet, their disappearance left a gap. Modern products may be more efficient, but many people still long for the scents, flavors, and simplicity of those 1960s classics. They weren't just brands, they were memories. Pieces of childhood. Symbols of a slower era when families gathered around the dinner table and life felt just a little more personal. When we look back at the household brands that disappeared after the 1960s, we're not just talking about old detergents, forgotten cereals, or cleaning sprays. We're looking at tiny cultural time capsules, symbols of what American life used to be before everything sped up, scaled up, and shifted into something unrecognizable. Their disappearance tells a story far bigger than the products themselves. In the 1960s, a brand didn't just sit on a shelf, it lived inside a home. A box of laundry soap carried the familiar scent of childhood. A tin of floor polish reminded people of Saturdays spent cleaning together before a family outing. A cereal box wasn't just breakfast, it was a quiet moment at the kitchen table before school, the radio humming softly in the background. These brands were woven into daily rituals, and losing them meant losing the rhythm of a simpler time. Their disappearance reflects a larger cultural shift. America moved from homemade to store-bought, from local identity to national uniformity. As corporations grew, individuality faded. A small-town brand with a loyal fan base couldn't compete with the sleek marketing machines of global companies. What once gave every region its own personality slowly dissolved into a world of identical products found everywhere. It also speaks to the changing role of the American household. The 1960s celebrated home life, family dinners, weekend chores, cozy traditions. But as decades passed, routines changed. People spent less time cooking, cleaning, and shopping thoughtfully. Convenience replaced ritual. Speed replaced care. And so the brands built for a slower lifestyle simply didn't fit the pace of modern living. Most of all, their disappearance reminds us just how quickly memories fade when they're not preserved. A brand you used every day can vanish, and within a generation, it becomes a trivia question. Yet, when we rediscover these lost names, they unlock something deep: nostalgia, comfort, a reminder of who we used to be. These forgotten brands aren't just about products that vanished. They're about a culture in transition, a portrait of America growing up and moving forward, sometimes at the cost of losing the very things that once made everyday life feel warm, familiar, and beautifully simple. As we look back at these forgotten household brands from the 1960s, it becomes clear that we're not just remembering products. We're reconnecting with a way of life that felt warmer, slower, and far more personal. Every vanished detergent box, every discontinued cereal, every old-fashioned cleaner carried memories that once shaped daily routines. They lived in cupboards, on countertops, and inside the rhythm of American homes, becoming small but meaningful pieces of family history. And that's why exploring them matters. These brands remind us of a time when shopping wasn't rushed, when families trusted labels because they recognized the stories behind them, and when even the simplest items held emotional weight. Recalling them sparks something familiar: a scent, a childhood scene, a moment long buried but suddenly vivid again. Their disappearance also teaches us how quickly life changes. One decade can transform the shelves of a nation, shifting tastes, habits, and expectations. But even when the products fade, the feelings they created don't disappear. They linger, waiting for us to rediscover them. So as we close this nostalgic journey, consider this. Which forgotten brand from your own past would you bring back if you could? Which one still lives quietly in your memory? If you enjoyed this trip into the past, stay tuned. There are countless more stories, more lost products, and more hidden pieces of history waiting to be uncovered. After all, nostalgia isn't just remembering the past, it's preserving it.